Um, Data scientists, process miners, and to-be process miners. Good afternoon. First of all, I'm still tired, all the way from Australia. I would like to acknowledge and thank all the previous speakers. You all really added a lot to my knowledge personally. I'm sure for the rest as well. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the organizers, and in particular Anna. And it is an honor to speak in front of all of you, and in particular the good father of process mining, Professor Will. First of all, disclaimer, still we struggling in the organization to to have sponsors and champions in the organization. So here I'm representing myself, and just in the last day before I came, the legal team asked to go and represent yourself, not the organization, because of other issues. But I'm representing myself here. So a bit about myself. My name is Abs Amiri. I work for SPARQ Solutions now for the last 8 years. In the last 20 years, I've been involved. Whatever I did was revolved around data. From programmer to data modeling to an architect to data science lead. So right now I'm a senior AP and data science lead in the organization. I come across process mining probably 2 years ago. And before that, I started really doing a lot of work and participated on Kaggle. If you guys are familiar with that. And basically in data science and prediction and analysis. And I've utilized process mining before really getting into prediction analysis to pinpoint where the problem is first and then really focus on that area. So I've utilized it first for that, and then I went through other things as well where there was a challenge. It was a vending machine. There was a problem with the vending machine. So this vending machine, they put the data there to say, can you predict when this vending machine fails? So first thing, I used process mining. I used it first to analyze how this system works. I wasn't familiar with it. So I took the log to understand what's the problem with it. And then I really pinpointed the problem, where was the problem. And once I found where the problem was, I implemented machine learning to predict when it fails. So I published it online. A lot of people started asking what this process mining is, how do you utilize it? So then I've tried to explain, and I found it's not just really you can use it for a lot of things, not just to find efficiencies in the process. And I know, Professor, you've asked earlier about a question about what other things that could improve the product or the area itself. I have many. So I'll be talking about SPARQ Solutions, Energex and Ergon in brief, and then the case study there is dispatching process. In brief, I'll be talking about what is the dispatching process, how did we initiate process mining there, and efficiency targets and what were the outcomes. There, I've heard a lot of people ask about how difficult it was, and what did you use and what strategy you had to convince your managers that this is actually worth investing in. I've learned this the hard way, and I would like to share with you my strategy. I think you will benefit out of that. You can tweak it as you like, but it is crucial to have a strategy, especially if it's your first project in the organization. No one will fund an idea unless until you have a R&D department. So you do have to have a strategy to penetrate process mining into an organization. Then we'll wrap up, and we'll have time for questions. So Energex, what Energex is? Energex is basically a state-owned government corporation. They do provide, they are one of two electricity distribution companies. They provide connections to 1.6 domestic and business connection. Obviously providing electricity to a population of 3.3 million in the growing region of southeast Queensland. And the other one is Ergon Energy. They provide distribution, electricity distribution company to the rest of Queensland, which is, I think it's a massive area to cover, and I'm not sure if it's 44 times the size of Netherlands. SPARQ Solutions, just in brief, SPARQ Solutions is the IT arms of these two companies. It's owned by Queensland government as well, so these two companies decided to merge their IT system in one, and that was the product of this merge, and it's called SPARQ Solutions. For you, some of you guys not aware of the chain of electricity, you have power generators first, and then you have high voltage electricity transmission, those towers. If you go on the highway, you see the towers. Electricity distributors down there, and then retail. Both Energex and Ergon are electricity distributions, and plus Ergon provide retail as well. So this is the process, just in brief, I'll be talking about it. So first, a customer calls call center. They have an issue with the power. They run out of electricity. They phone in. The call center log an incident. It goes to the evaluation team in control room. They evaluate that. They look at it, and they decide, okay, there is an issue here. Let's send it to the dispatch system. So they send it there. Dispatchers will evaluate it. Then they dispatch it, and crew perform the work, and finally the power gets restored. Now, in Queensland, we have 6 months of storm season, official storm season. So that goes from September to March each year. So we have flood, we have storms. I'm pretty sure you guys are aware. You see it in the news all the time. We have bushfire. If we don't have rain, we have bushfire. So, we have to live with that. And therefore, there is a massive impact on the utility companies there. So now, our staff is actually not just equipped well to deal with these natural events. We're also equipped to deal with a zombie apocalypse as well, or even alien invasion. So we're ready for everything. So first of all, what were the drives? Electricity prices in Queensland in particular, it's been going up for the last 5 years. So it's probably tripled the price now. And there is a pressure from the public putting back into the government. And from the government, obviously, it's putting pressure on these companies to say, you have to do more with less. This is your budget, and you have to do more with less. So this is a new field, a new experience in these companies. In the last 10 years, they never had problem with income. Now, they do. So obviously, by just looking at that, you look at process improvements. With process improvements, we're looking at something called competition. Competition, even though they are government-owned corporations, the government's actually putting pressure on them to be equivalent to other companies, other private companies in other states within Australia. We're looking at the effectiveness of dispatching emergency orders. What we're trying to do there, we're trying to avoid bottlenecks. We're trying to avoid idle times and delays in business processes. And finally, if we restore power on time, the regulator, Australian electricity regulator, I'll be referring to it as a regulator down the track. So the regulator there, they have a reward incentive scheme for these companies. So if they restore power on time, and in particular, they have all these criteria basically based on the size of that event. So if they restore power on time, there is a $28 million sitting there to claim. So there is an incentive there for these companies to be to invest actually in their efficiencies. So all this was, you can apply process mining as a good candidate to find where the problems are. I know some people talk about process mining as a solution. To me, it's not a solution. It's the first step to the solution. You need to find a problem first to find a solution for it. So here to pinpoint, to find the problem. Where is the problem? What is costing us? And from there, it's up to you how do you want to implement your recommendations. So the scope, we're looking at 4 systems. We're looking at call center. We're looking at distribution management system. That's a GE product. And we're looking at ABB Ventex service suite. That's a dispatching system. And then we're looking at dispatch group phone logs. We're looking at end-to-end processes. It is important to mention this when you start any project, because we know some of the processes that start and don't end could really confuse you in your analysis. You have to really clean it. Even in Disco, I use Disco actually also from Disco, not just to analyze. I use it to clean my data as well. We're looking at one sample only here, even though I've actually classified the same size of events to basically have 5 or 10 events and compare them together. It was a question before about comparative analysis. I use that a lot. How I use that, I've actually added all of them, all the data in one, and I've added different column, and I've used the combined activity. So that's how I distinguished between each process, each event. Project approach, I always use this. I start with hypothesis. I start with the main questions. What are the main questions? You can't buy the tools first and then find your problem. You have to find the problem first and then go down to that track. I do iteration a lot. Iteration there, I do this in each and every step in process mining project. Why is that? You do need to engage process owners from the beginning, from the start. It is crucial. There is, in the course, there's a line there to say, process mining bridges the gap between IT and the business. It is crucial role. It is really crucial role. And there is a divide, obviously, we need a traditional divide between IT and business. Process mining, it really bridges that gap. It does truly, and I've used it in my benefit to really work closely with the business to share the same goal. Basically, efficiency was the main goal there. Once we've identified that, we go to data identification, and we pull the data, and we do wrangling and challenging with the data, as you all have experienced. It is a fun area. Then we choose the ideal process analysis, supporting tools, selections, and then we get to the report definition. Even in the report definition, I engage the business with me. And at the end, I have report writing. These are the two products at the end, technical report writing and presentation, which is the lighter version of the report. There were a few questions before about do they trust you if you provide this? Do they trust you? What I do at the end there, and I intentionally did that because it was the first project, intentionally did that. What I did, basically, I did it similar to a research-based report. So I've documented each and every step in my project. So anyone can come after me if my recommendation to implement these recommendations will cost the company above 10 million, and they have to trust me to implement, to invest that $10 million. What they can do, hire someone else, pay him a few $1,000. It's a good investment. Run through what I did exactly, clarify how correct I was or how wrong I was. If that balances, here's your box being ticked. Move on. So I did that, and in my presentations when I went to different group of people, I tend to say that. It gives that assurance. It is important if it's your first project to have that. They can take it, scrutinize it, come back and tell me where I went wrong. We started with these 4 main questions. So how does the discovered process actually look like comparing to the known one? Do we meet the performance targets? Are there deviations from the prescribed process? How efficient is the current process? So if you look at these questions, they are generic questions. You can apply it anywhere, in any system you have. And intentionally, I went really the high level of questions, because the least thing you want is if you go to the business traditional way of asking you is, we know there's a problem there, can you find it for us? But if you generalize the question, you're actually trying to find, look, we don't know what we're going to find. Let's find out. So it is the practice of discovering. It's not just knowing the issue, but really trying to find the issue and then socializing with other departments. So I used prompt to basically first get the feel of the process itself. So I use these well-known models. With data challenges, tooling and technicalities, ETL. I think there is a gap there. A lot of people, if it's repetitive work to come back to the data, as you've seen, we have many events, many natural events. So we also go back to a different set of data. Again, we have to clean it again. We have to go through that pain again. So straight away, I went, look, whether I do it in Java or I do it in C#, I'm going to automate that process because it will be repetitive. There is a gap there. And I think once you do that, you save yourself down the track, because if you want to come back to the process and have a look at it, it is important to automate that. If it's one-off, you really don't need to do that. So why I did that, in Oracle database, I've created an hourly table, 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, and 24 hours. And the last, I had the historical data there. Plus, I had other lookup tables there. So I'm pulling information, I'm pulling data from different sources, different formats and all. Quite challenging. So we're looking at data issues. We're looking at timestamps are implicitly available, so that's good. From 2, we're looking at A to B at time T, so on the left to the right. I won't take you into detail too much, but just to make you aware of what I did. So I use from Disco, R Studio, which is our language, and RapidMiner. I use R a lot, and I could really utilize R to have a feel of the data first before I do anything else. And I use RapidMiner to clean my data as well, to have a feel of the data. To build my logic in the ETL, I really take them through that. So we're looking at redundant timestamps, basically group timestamps. So the algorithm is basically, if it's really close time, it will group them as the highest and the lowest. Or you can, if you're lazy, you don't want to do that, you can bring it in Prom or Disco and filter it out. Or what you can do, you can create an omnibus activity. It's basically you target the minimum and then the maximum. Combination of activities and statuses. Yeah, won't talk too much about that. So, yeah, I won't talk too much about that. So, the information in free text fields, XML formats. Sometimes it's not really fun to deal with all this. The more I walk through this, the more pain I feel. So, multiple database tables with varying data formats, and multiple database tables with non-matching contents, timestamps in various time zones. Obviously, you have many systems talking to each other. For advanced analysis, I use split and add columns. So now we come to the question number 1. So as you see, the flow here, this is, as we call it, the normal path. Just from experience, going through several projects, I set a benchmark for myself. The normal process, I would like it always to be above 60%. Why is that? I know if it's above 60%, most of the time I feel, okay, actually this process is mature. People are using it according to the business expectations, and therefore the focus on the 40% or the remaining, to find efficiency, that's good, but that's an indication first, the first indication I get that the system is mature, or in that particular event it was followed correctly. We're looking at loops there in dispatch. So here are the orders or the incidents that were eventually redispatched. So inefficiently dispatched, got knocked back by the crews in the field, whether they didn't have the right skills to do, or whether they actually didn't have time in their shifts. So it was just at the end of the shift and you dispatch a job to them, they'll knock it back. We had loops en route, so crews are traveling on sites multiple times on the same incidents. Then we have the loops down there on sites. Crews actually went on site multiple times on these jobs. And then we have cancellation, 26% cancellation. Referred orders, we have 13% there. Here are just general stats. We're looking at case duration and events over time. We're looking at here, we set the threshold there. So for each event that we really analyze and go through, the factors really varies because they are different sizes. The elements and the factors, the outside factors were different. So, but what we did, we agreed on 1 hour, 3 hours, 5 hours, and anything above 8 hours. We agreed on that to split them that way. What's interesting there is that the plus 8 hours. So 31% of orders of incidents were completed above 8 hours. Here are general stats. What were the main activities, or the highest activities, the top dispatched areas. Apologies for it's not really clear enough. It's just we had to use PowerPoint. So this is the top dispatched areas. We're looking at the top suburbs as well down there. The host priorities, job codes. So if we see here, we look at wires down pole to house and wires down pole to pole. So this is an indication of we had really high speed on that day. A business unit where close to 70% were field services. Question number 3, process deviations. What are we looking at there? We're looking at cancelled orders. We look at majority were cancelled by evaluators. That's normal. But what's interesting here, we found 12% of original orders cancelled by dispatchers. That's a big no-no. But if it's a big no-no, why are you allowing this in your system? Try to add validation, do something about it. Why you're not doing anything about it? So why that's a big no-no? You have two systems talking to each other. You have the dispatch system and you have distribution management system in control room, which has SCADA in it and other systems linked to it. If you cancel it in the master, which is in distribution management system, fine, no problems. It's a clean cancellation. It generates an automatic cancellation in the rest where the jobs are or the orders are. But if you cancel it from the dispatching process, one system is saying this order is valid and the other one is saying this order is cancelled. So it's a big no-no. But no one was aware of this. Loops, we're looking at en route, dispatch, on site. What's common between them? Evaluation, we're taking the longest duration. So one of the main challenges in any process is that the life cycle of that incident is, it goes through all that from call center all the way to restoration. Now, each chunk, the reality is, each chunk of this process owned by different group. These groups come with their own KPIs. It is really challenging to have one KPI for all because each group really responsible for their own KPIs. Once you really walk through this, and this is the first time they see something like this, if they sit, the groups sit together after an event. What went wrong? What went okay? What did we learn from it? What we need to do moving forward? The blame shift starts going right and left. Each group is responsible for KPIs, not how the process is going. They're ticking the boxes and life is good. But in general, it's costing the organization. It's costing money. And utilizing or underutilizing or overutilizing your resources is very important area in operations research. I deal with those guys as well to really utilize process mining, work with those operations research people who look at how to optimize your resources very well. They are the experts in that field. So here straight away, in this particular event, we can see the evaluation took the longest. So straight away, what happened there? In that particular time, with the evaluation, it's always started with single customer, and the evaluators and the control room, they had to really weigh it up, whether it's a single customer or it's a lockout area or an area trouble. So they had to really weigh it up. They had to wait. That's what caused it. But what do you need more to do to do more efficient, to be more efficient, to be more quicker. They did come with their findings as well. Why they were struggling. We're looking at question number 4, process efficiency. We're looking at the mean duration there and total duration. We're looking at question number 4, process efficiency. So with referred orders, what we'd like to see there is the orders that were referred. We can live with the referred, no problems with that. We can accept that. But we would like those referred incidents to be eventually completed rather than to be cancelled. So in this particular example, we had 63% were actually eventually cancelled. While we had 36% were eventually completed. So here again, we look at referred. Dispatchers were lacking some information to make the best decision there. Again, we're looking at process efficiency. Now, here what I did, the same set of data. This is the power of process mining. With the same set of data, I haven't really changed anything. All I did, I combined activities. So rather than just having one column activity, I've added the dispatch group as well there. So with that, I was able to pinpoint the group who did well and the group who didn't do well. So here we're looking at network access and depots. They didn't have any cancellation and they didn't have any loops. Even though the frequency between them is really not matched, but there is an indication there. It tells you something. It is really a starting point to open that discussion. Even though we're looking at the high frequency there, 47% were central dispatch storm. So again, with process mining, go to it with open mind. You really, with the same set of data, you can do a lot. You can look at it in different angle. So long you prepare the data, I had to prepare the data there to classify not just the dispatch. I had to drill down into what type of dispatch you are, from which group. Again, here we're looking at a different angle in process efficiency. We're looking at the duration there. We're looking at the top 3 impacted suburbs for that event. And what we can see there, again, there's a pattern there. We're looking at evaluation activities. We're looking at, again, order grouped by priority. We're looking at it in different angle there. The same set of data. Here I have same case ID. I have different activity. Here I'm looking at 2 crews, crew number 1, crew number 2. What I'm trying to find, there is a rule in the business to how to utilize your resources or your crews efficiently, is we want them to spend the majority of time on site, actually doing the actual work, rather than traveling. So this, basically, we want the dispatchers to dispatch that particular incident to the closest crew with the right set of skills to perform that. So we don't want them to travel from south to east, from north to south, so, and vice versa. We don't want them that. But here, what we can see, there's a pattern there. We're looking at, yes, we're not that efficient. They're traveling more than they're actually performing. Again, same set of data. I haven't changed anything in the data. Here, what I'm doing, I'm looking at the roles interactions. I'm looking at dispatchers interaction. How these systems interact with each other, or how these groups interact with each other, and how roles interact with each other. Sometimes it could tell us something. Sometimes it's just good to know how they actually interact with each other. Again, coming to this. it's not working, but the animation. When I get this to work in a room with those process owners sitting around the table, this generates a lot of storytelling. They always tell me, stop here, stop here. Yep, I stop, and they go, this is, you remember, John, this is when that issue happened. Remember that? Wow. This is where they start trusting you. They don't need to know what's in the black box. They can sense this is right or wrong straight away. I know with engineering mindset, it is very challenging. They want to know everything. And face the reality, engineer, this is science era. We don't know what we're going to find, and you have to be flexible until you find it. So I'm from the engineering mentality as well, but I had to really twist and change my brain to not to really go to that extent to understand how the model is actually working. You tell me so I can scrutinize it. But it's good enough to walk the business with you to scrutinize it. So in summary, these are the findings on these questions. Again, we went through so many findings that went just this is just in brief. As the first case of process mining project, it was very successful. And again, I had to go back and forth to work on my strategy to penetrate the idea of process mining. Then I did on substation, basically to analyze how a substation works, to look at the whole process within a substation, and how the maintenance process works. And then once I found that and what was costing too much time, what I did, I went through, I combined process mining with machine learning. I started predicting when that substation needed oil change, for example. Are we over-maintaining it or under-maintaining it? What brand is actually working well? What's other brands not working well? What is the different processes between this brand and this brand? What are the changes? What are the common things between them? And this, we started actually building those knowledge in-house. If we go to find a new replacement substation, and with substation design, we always look at that as well. So it really helps those engineers to build their knowledge around substations. Recommendation, we came with several recommendations. What was interesting there with recommendations? There were some KPIs conflicting with other KPIs in different groups. And some KPIs were actually driving the behavior. So, again, they were ticking those boxes, but were they efficient? Probably not. And we proved it wasn't. So we built this cost-cutting measures there, just by looking at how much cost-saving measures there. We've been very, very conservative there. We're looking at $1.1 million in savings. Only if we're looking at cancelled orders and referred orders. We couldn't come to an agreement with what's costing us on the loops because we really couldn't really add figures to it. So in here, what we're doing, dispatching process improvements, we're looking at return on investment on the project, and STIPES, which is the regulator incentive. So we're looking to get these two. By just looking at the KPI changes and business rules for dispatchers and crews, and we're looking at other elements there as well. So there were, in some bad storms, what these companies do, they add more resources, whether they are dispatchers or controllers. What we found, there was a trend. As soon as you add more dispatchers, those who are not permanent dispatchers, what's going to happen there straight away? They dispatch orders inefficiently. Yes, you have more resources, but they are not really efficient and effective. It's actually slowing you down. So what you had to do, we had to find, okay, they really didn't have the proper skills, and they didn't really understand the ins and outs of these systems. There were tricks that only the permanent staff knew it. So we looked at sharing knowledge and training. And then if may needed down the track, maybe process change. But in this example, we didn't need to touch anything on process change. But that was crucial though, because if you change a process, there's a cost to it. You have to change the systems, you have to change the IT systems, you have to train people, you have to engage the union in it. So it's massive changes that you're going for. But in here, we really didn't really need any changes because the process was already mature enough. Now, data science penetration strategy. I'll come, again, I'm squeezing my brain and I'm giving it to you. Hopefully you use it. Use it in your advantage. Always start with domain knowledge. Start with somewhere you're familiar with. Start in a process that you understand well. Not really very well, but you understand well. And prepare yourself to understand the business. I'm talking about the first cap of the rank, the first project that you would like to implement. It is crucial. It is very, very important. It helped me a lot in my case. Again, I was one of the designers in the whole system. That's why I knew it inside out, and it helped me a lot. Prototype. If it's your first one, always start with prototype. Start small. Have a strategy of small change, big gain. Always start with high-level activity. Don't try to say, look, I need to include everything so they see the value of this. Start really high. Start as high as you can to make your process understandable. So the highest possible activities in your process. And don't forget to identify the problem or the main questions. You have to find the questions first. Third one, sponsors. Here you're trying to look at shareholder or stakeholders' ecosystem. Who owns this process? Who reports to who? It is important to know your enemies. So you need to know everyone in that area. Not just to know them personally, but to know who reports to who are they, who you're supposed to talk to, and who they need to talk to. With the sponsors, here, start with the highest level in your organization. Start with your executive management team. Start there to get their backup. Why do you need to do that? Because if you talk to the highest level in your organization, they talk about efficiencies. Efficiency is really the main thing for them. If you come from the middle managers, efficiency is nothing. It's my KPI. That's what gets me there. It's my KPI. And I don't care what's in it for if it's the middle manager, I don't care what's in it for the organization. I care what's in it for me and my department. That's all I care about. But when you talk to the executives, they see this, they see value in this. And also be aware of not always having the same talk about process mining. Try to articulate and tailor your message according to the audience. Not the same conversation goes well with executives as middle managers as the frontliners. Try to articulate your message very well according to the audience. Become a good storyteller. to take them through a journey and become a good storyteller, it's really important. They understand you. They know your language very well. What are you talking about? Especially if you have that domain expertise, and they'll buy into what you're trying to say. And again, what's in it for the organization? If you're looking at the high-level executives in the organization, they do want to see what's in it for the organization. It is important to highlight that. Once you come to the consultation, with consultation, engage business processes, engage process business owners from the beginning. And I warn you, engage them from the beginning. They will support you. If they see what's in it for them, they will support you. Try to find what's in it for them and walk them through that journey with you. Let them feel they own something in this with you. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to find efficiencies in the process. So, find what's in it for them. It is important. That's why it is important to articulate your message very well, according to the audience. Agree on a plan. Agree with them on a plan. Don't have a plan and go your own way, do things and come back and show it to them. Agree on a plan and walk on that plan. Here, it is an opportunity now to enrich your process based on their requirement. Now, you had the high level, now they'll ask you, 100% they will ask you this, can you add this? Can you add this? Or can you add this activity? Here you can say, yep, I can. Now they're feeling they own this now. They are in it with you. It was important to add that high level, so you generate those questions. But you have the high level, can you add this, can you add this, can you add this? So they start have a feel of that process that, yes, well, you add this activity and it will be more meaningful for me. And then enrich all parties on progress, on where you're going with this. Business case, it is important at the end of the first cab of the rank. Complete the business case, highlight benefits, tangible and intangible ones, and plan next steps. It's always important, this last point. This, where it gets you going in your organization. Plan what's next. For me, for example, here, I've highlighted what's next for me is that prep time. If we can predict the weather very well, we know how many people we need. We need to know exactly where this storm or where this event's going to hit, in which area. So we utilize our crews close to that area before it hits. So I'm using machine learning for that, and that's one. And then we had another, actually ongoing process mining project. We're looking at network ops. With network ops, they would like to see live events coming in. Why is that? They would like to see it as dashboards. So you really have to distinguish sometimes between reporting dashboards and what process mining is. Process mining is really to improve your processes, to pinpoint where the problem are. It's not really just to monitor. It's not a monitoring tool. It is really to find how you're going well or no, what we need to do to get there. Last but not least, if this pops up, engineers versus science. What is really important here is when you face engineer mindset, they want to know what this product is, how you're going to initiate your project, how you're going to end it, what you're going to deliver for them according to their needs, and how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost. Be aware of all these questions. You do need to start small. You do need to start analyzing how big this project is going to be. We don't know how complex the data is going to be unless until we start, and then we can tell you. We really can't commit to a time there. With science, we're going with discovering, really, trying to do discovery analysis there first. trying to understand the process, trying to pinpoint all those areas that we talked about. Again, with engineers, you do need to get them on board with you. They're really hard to get on board. You need to convince them, and they will ask you, can we see the algorithms? Even we don't understand it, but can we see it? They will ask you those questions, so we can trust it. They'll ask you these questions. I always just say, I'll get you there. Let's first analyze the data, and I would like you to come with me to pinpoint me if I'm wrong in any way. Just pinpoint where the problems are, and I'll take you with it. But if they really request to understand what's in the black box, yeah, say all right. Put them in deep and give them all the analytics, all the explanations, or guide them to one of the Coursera's training, and let them understand it. If you're coming from data mining background, or data science background, you can relate to it straight away. Process mining is really that, combining all those two. Process miners, and to be process miners, thank you very much for your patience and listening to the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abs. We have a little bit time left for questions, so raise your arm and you will get the microphone. I will start with the first one.
Sure.
So I remember you started also this talk that way. You said you learned it the hard way, right? And I remember one time you told me, connecting quite well to this last, the steps of the data science penetration strategy, where you said, consider who's sitting in your meeting and how you tell your story, what you want to get across to them. And you told me about one time where you learned actually afterwards that it didn't go that well. Maybe, would you mind telling that story?
Yeah, sure. So that was with the executive team. I had the first presentation with them. Yeah, the first one went well. Then I went into the prototype to really engage them into the prototype. So I went down to the level with the middle managers and the frontliners to walk through that process. And then I had a request from the EMT in 4 weeks' time to, we're really interested to know how did you go and what did you find. So I came back to them with really, my explanation or my analysis was really technical. And they didn't want to know the technical side of it. They wanted to know, what did it do to our organization? And for me, I was excited. I thought they will be excited too. And yeah, I really had to step back and to really understand, don't expect people to be excited as you are when you talk about the technical side of it, because yeah, you're excited, it's a new thing, it's adding a lot of value, but they may not see that. Their goal is different. So you really need to analyze and understand your audience before you confront them.
Thank you. Who else has a question?
Hi there.
Okay.
Hello? This one is not working yet. Yes, it is there. Thank you, Abs, for a great presentation. You triggered me with the statement where you said, well, the maturity of a process to me is starting from, let's say, 60% of the throughput is actually coming through the main way.
Yeah.
Would you walk us through the type of preparations you need to do in order to get to that type of assessment? Because I can imagine that you will have a lot of data cleaning done before you can say, well, this will be the maturity measurement I have.
Again, each and every step that I learned here, I learned it the hard way. Giving process mining is really new in the field. And each scenario and each project is really different to another. So it's really hard to find that, standardize that. But for this case, Because I'm doing analysis on different events. And that's why when I started doing between a big event and a small event, small natural event, basically it wasn't really comparable. You can't really compare them. So one thing that we agreed on was that the floor, the 60% floor. So when I saw anything below that, what we found, it costed us dearly. So it was really the fact that as soon as this is below 60%, I'll spend more time in it to find what did it cost us. If it's over that, we more than happy to say over 60%, the flow path, yeah, I'm happy to leave it alone for now, but I'll focus on the one that costed us actually. Then we can really target if we don't have anything else. Actually, down the track, I wanted that to be close to 80%, but we're walking through that.
Okay. We have one last question in the back there.
You seem to be laboring the point of...
Speak up a little bit, please.
Oh, is this better?
Yes, much better.
Okay. You seem to be belaboring the point of demonstrating added value to the company at some length. In the other presentations I heard today, well, the one by Deutsche Bundespost, those auditors, they basically owned their own process and they cared bugger all about what the rest of the company thought of it. It helped them. They were able to demonstrate things. The first presentation from that consultancy firm in South Africa, they were actually able to, as a consultancy, provide added value to some of their customers. And well, they did say they started explaining it to managing directors. But yeah, well, I'm not quite sure how hard they had to explain. And during the lunch, I had somebody explain to me that improvement processes she was working with sort of neglected the final phase in calculating the net benefit to the company. So there seem to be all kinds of niche markets and ways in which processes, this kind of processes live. Could you perhaps well, give us your thoughts on that matter?
Thank you for the questions, but I'm not. I'm really not quite sure if I got the question right. Sorry for that. I would really like to answer your question, but I would like to understand it first.
Maybe you can take it offline in the break.
We'll have a chat later. How about that? I'll give you 10 minutes. I think was one question here.
Okay, then one last question there. Yes.
You had your hands up.
I think it's almost the same question.
I'm glad that you understood
With
it.
a little twist. What I'm looking for is...
First of all, I would like you to repeat the question.
I'll put it differently. My question is basically, can you point out the actual value that your research brought to the company? Because you did a lot of investigation and fact-finding, but I'm looking for the actual process improvements and benefits that were okayed by senior management.
Again, with senior management, they care about efficiency at the end of the day. They care about what did it cost us before and what did it cost us now in terms of the whole process, not just the process. For us was, if we improve our process, we can utilize our crews better. So we aren't, right now, we are actually underutilizing our crews. So once we really improve our process, which will have an impact on resource utilization, for the executives, they really don't want to go to detail. Which area did you really find out was important to improve? All they care about is before it was this scenario. Now it is this scenario. How much did it cost us before, and how much is costing us now? So once you really demonstrate this, for me here, again, there were so many other findings as well there. So this is just in brief. But in terms of the main findings there were the KPIs. Conflicting KPIs. So again, we didn't really change the process at all. All we did, KPIs. First of all, that's what were really costing the organizations dearly. Because those KPIs were really driving the behavior. So you've seen the loops there. For dispatchers, for example, their KPI says they measure you as a dispatcher, how many orders do you dispatch per day or per event? Full stop. There wasn't anything to say how many jobs have you dispatched efficiently. We found a way to find what efficient is. That's what was lacking before. The same thing with the crews in the field. Those loops, we want them to disappear. So evaluation time, why it was taking too long. They came back to say, we didn't have the right information at the right time. Same thing with the dispatchers. They didn't have the right information at the right time. So here are your 50% improvements straight away once you implement those really minor recommendations without changing the process. So changing the process is the last thing you do because it will cost you. And if you want to change it, you have to prove why you need to change it. And it will cost the organization if you want to implement changes. So this process, business process, is mature. If I was looking at another candidate, small candidate, as a prototype with much complex process and not that mature, I would have struggled from the beginning. But it is really important to pick your first project carefully. And with this, again, I had that strategy with small change, big gain strategy. And it worked. It worked, Ben. I hope I answered your question, yeah?
Okay, thank you. We are out of time. We are out of time. Thanks a lot. Let's give another round of applause.
Thank you.